As we celebrate International Women's Day, I want to give some thoughts and observations from the perspective of a woman who has been involved in the law as a lawyer for the last 30 years. And there's things that I want to celebrate, and there's some things we need to talk about. So I want to start by talking about the things that I am really grateful for that have helped me to get to where I am today. And where I am today is a lawyer who has, as I said, practiced law for 30 years. I was able to ultimately sell my practice, and now I work as a business coach for other women lawyers who are in solo practice or in small law firms, 5 lawyers or less, to help them set up the business in the way that meets their lifestyle and meets their needs. So there's many things I'm grateful for, but some of the biggest are the examples that I've had in my life of successful women in business and in the law. I had an aunt who set up her own staffing agency at a time when women weren't going into business for themselves, and she did it very successfully. I have a cousin who not only went to law school, but she ultimately became a lawyer. She's a terrific role model. I am very grateful for Title IX because that's the legislation that allowed me as an undergraduate to go to the University of Virginia. There was a time, believe it or not, when UVA did not admit women. And fortunately, I was a beneficiary of Title IX, and I was able to go there and get a fabulous education. I am grateful for the generation of women before me who busted open the doors to law school for other women. By the time I got to law school, my law school class was about 25% women. It's much higher now, 50% plus of law school students are women. But there was a generation of women before me that broke that door open and allowed me to enter it. I am very grateful for that. I am grateful for the generations before me of men and women who fought to try to get the Equal Rights Amendment passed. More about that later, because it has still not passed, but I'm grateful that they were willing to fight that fight. You know, I'm grateful that we don't have to look at ads such as the ones that were prominent in the 1970s. And I mean, that was a while back, but it's not ancient times. And yet there were cigarette ads talking about, "You've come a long way, baby." They were obviously geared towards women. And in the ads, they would talk about how great it was for women now, or then, back then, who wanted to smoke, that they didn't have to get permission from their husbands. And I'm honestly not making that up. You can check it out. The cigarette company was, I think it was Philip Morris. The brand was Virginia Slims. But that's what was being put in front of women at that time. I'm really grateful we don't have to look at that anymore. And I agree. Women have come a long way. Women in the law have come a long way. When I first started practicing law, it was unusual, and I'm being nice, honestly, when I say unusual. It was almost impossible to find a woman who was a judge. And yet now, women are well represented on the bench, at least in my jurisdiction in Maryland. But there's lots of ways where things have not progressed. And we need to think about it, and we need to be able to move forward. It's very disappointing to me that the Equal Rights Amendment never passed, and apparently has very little chance at this point of ever becoming an amendment to the Constitution. I mean, the Equal Rights Amendment simply asked that women be given equal rights and that it be embodied in the Constitution. And you have to get a certain percentage of states to ratify that and to pass it. And since 1972, that has not happened. It sends a very bad message. Women, in terms of their earning power, although it's improved, women still only make 80 cents to the dollar compared to men. Now, I think there's many reasons for that, but The fact that they're women has something to do with it, just based on gender bias and based on the traditional roles that women are expected to fulfill in society. We need to make progress on that because, for example, with childcare, men and women need to share that responsibility equally. Women in law are not in large numbers in positions of power and influence in the largest law firms. Women have made a lot of strides in the law, but they're still not in those very visible positions. And yet, more than 50% of law school students are women. So where's the disconnect? I mean, I have my lots of feelings and thoughts about that and observations, but I think a lot of the disconnect comes from the fact that the structure of law is not a structure that fits with women, how they work, and how they want their life to be. There was a time, a long time ago, but the common description of lawyers and law was the law is a jealous mistress. Now, it's misogynistic, I know it. But there's the point, and I think the point is still there, that the law will take up so much of your time, you're not going to have time for other things. Women aren't willing to put up with that. They want time with their families. They want to enjoy their families. They want to enjoy their friends. They want to enjoy the practice of law. You don't want it to be a grind, 12, 14, 16 hours a day, year after year after year, until you become partner. And you're making a lot of money, and that's great, but you become partner and the pressures don't stop. Now you have to keep producing. You have to keep producing clients. You have to keep producing work. Women don't want that, and they're willing to say, I don't want that. I want to do it differently. So for women lawyers, what can you do? Well, first, don't complain. It's easy for us all to complain, but that's not going to help. You need to act. And you need to look at a different way that you can practice law from the traditional law firm model. There are plenty of different ways for you to be a successful lawyer and a happy lawyer and not have to follow the traditional model. You know, you'll set priorities for your life, what is most important to you, and then you'll fashion your work around that, and it can be done. And I'm very grateful that we as women have the opportunity to do that, and we can really lead the way. So on International Women's Day, I think there's plenty for us to celebrate, but even though we've come a long way, baby, we still have a long way to go.